This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It is sponsored by Independent Bank. I am Rich Spicer. My co-host is Katie Huckle. And this morning we're talking sports.
We are, and we've got the man of the hour. I was telling Fred, our athletic director of Cadillac Area Public Schools, in the high school specifically, everybody wants a piece of Fred. See, because everybody's got to go to him to get what they want in sports. New uniforms, I mean, all the things, and so I suspect that he has a lot of messages every day. Is that true?
Oh, without a doubt.
Rich, I was talking to Fred about, we've got a millage issue that passed. And so we've got improvements being made to the high school. And can you talk to us a little bit about how that's impacted athletics?
Sure. I mean, we started out this fall with tennis, where we were literally the day before our first home scheduled match. We were going through the checklist with the engineers and the architects to make sure that the courts were able to be used. So when our kids played the next day, it was the first time anybody had been on the courts. So that's how tight that window was for us.
They hadn't even practiced on the court?
Had not even practiced on the courts.
Whoa, boy.
So they had practiced. They had practiced up at Diggins. The day before, when we were doing our walkthrough, the kids were out getting team pictures taken out on the courts, out on the new courts. But we were still putting nets and stuff up that day. So, I mean, they couldn't even practice out there. And by the time the next day rolled around, with the help of the maintenance staff and the custodial crew, we had bleachers out there, we had our garbage cans and tables, and we were ready to go and we hosted a varsity tennis quad, and it went great.
Oh my goodness!
So that was the start of the fall season. So that gives you an idea of the facility that we have for tennis is just second to none. I mean, we went to the state finals this year for our varsity boys program, first time in about 6 or 7 years, from my understanding, before I was here. So, and to go to some of these facilities downstate to see where they were going to host state final matches, our facilities were right there on par with what they had with where our kids played at. So I felt really good about the facility our kids have compared to some of the better facilities in the state that are worthy to host state tournaments.
As tight as that deadline was for the beginning of tennis season, you kind of had the same kind of situation for football with the stadium right at the end of those games, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're crunched in for when it comes to the timeline of getting different things done. The drainage, the excavation, the removal of turf and dirt and the asphalt from the track and the light poles and everything that goes around the facility. We just felt that we weren't going to have enough time to do that once the spring thaw came. So we had already made that decision that we weren't going to host, even if we had the proper amount of playoff points to host a playoff game. We just knew we weren't going to be able to, because we had scheduled week 9 on the road intentionally. We knew that, and as well as our JV games as well, and our one junior high game. So we put everybody on the road after October 14th. And then October 17th came around, and the bulldozers were out there that day on Monday, excavating and doing all the work. And, I was just over there today looking at some stuff, and it's amazing to me how much work they really have gotten done up to this point. And if we didn't do that, come spring, when it thaws out, they're going to get back after it again. But even then, they still have to finish the drainage, putting all the drain tile down, all of the concrete, everything for the new light poles, all of that stuff. And all of that stuff has to go in before we can even start putting down the gravel and the sand and stuff for the curbs for the new track and for the turf and everything else. So, you're looking at about a 3 to 4 month window. So once April rolls around and it's warm enough, we're going to be right on schedule again, where the idea is August 8th is the deadline, what we'd like to have them. But you guys know, in this business, weather comes up, and if things are not, if Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, it could put us a week behind. And so right now, tentatively, we are scheduled to host Midland at home for week 1. If that does not happen, we've already spoke with Midland and spoke with the officiating crew, and we will have to move that game to Midland if necessary. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Our construction manager and our architects and engineers feel that the window that we've been able to provide them at the end of the fall and the beginning of the spring is one that will be sufficient as long as the weather cooperates.
Speaking of which, is all the work at the stadium now officially on hold with the weather, or are there still some things happening?
No, they're still working.
Okay.
When we were over there today, they were still digging footings out, putting concrete down for the new bathrooms at the stadium. So those things are still going on. They dug out the basins for the foundations for the new light poles. So we're putting in new steel poles that will have LED lights compared to the old wooden telephone poles that had the large halogen lights. So these ones will be more energy friendly, won't use as much energy, and they'll direct the light right to the field instead of having the spillage that would go out into the, like the visiting, or the neighbors and stuff like that. So, and the other thing that we'll be able to do with these lights are we can control them and program them. I can control and program right from my phone. So if a team scores a touchdown, or if, because we're going to have soccer over there as well. If there's a goal scored, I can hit a button and the LED lights can flash and do all kinds of stuff like that.
That reminds me of the Michigan-Rutgers game. When I was watching the Michigan-Rutgers game, and Rutgers scored a touchdown, and the lights were on and off, and I was thinking, gosh, it looks like a 3-year-old who just chugged a Monster is in charge of these lights.
Yep.
So it's going to have kind of that feel too.
Yeah, we'll have the ability to do that.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm just sitting here grinning from ear to ear because when Fred took the job, it came to us from the UP. Isn't that so? Mm-hmm. Okay. We didn't exactly have, the best of everything, right? When you took the job. And it's like, what does it feel like to go from, okay, we can make this work, to now you're going to have state-of-the-art everything?
It is really a cool project to be involved in. The meetings, the planning, the community in general, the support. It has been a very, very cool process. There's been a lot of stress involved with it as far as trying to accommodate people when we just don't have facilities available. I feel bad that our track team isn't going to have a home track meet this year. But in the long run, they're going to have a brand new facility that has a brand new running track. It's going to have a brand new sound system, new lights, new bathrooms, new fencing, new entrance into the stadium. It's just going to be a great, great setup. I think it's going to be a great hub for the community. I think that's what the community was looking for, and I think we're going to be able to give them that.
Do you have thoughts of now, with these upgraded facilities, being able to host more regional athletic events and things like that? Is that kind of the hope, or?
Oh, that's already been determined. The guys from the MHSA that are friends of mine, they've already said be ready. Once that's done, we're going to be probably hosting regional track championships. We're probably going to be hosting regional and semifinal soccer and probably semifinal football as well.
And see, that has such a wonderful domino effect
Yes.
on the community and the economy too, right,
Yes.
Katie?
Yes, absolutely. All these people, all these parents, they need a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
They need a place to eat. They need a place to cook. We forgot Diet Coke, or Junior forgot his deodorant. Don't think that stuff doesn't happen, because it
sure.
does, right? And we're such a sports town, Fred.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the pressure that's on you, because so much of our identity is in our teams. So we live and breathe for this stuff.
Yeah, and it's been, for me, it's been a blast because anybody that's known me my whole life, that's my passion is athletics, and being involved in educational athletics for as long as I have been, and having the opportunity to really do some of the things that some ADs and school districts never get the chance to do is really special to me.
Can you talk to us? You said an important thing here, student athlete. And I know there's an emphasis on grades and on performing as a student first. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for us, our standards are in line with the MHSAA. when it comes to academic eligibility on a weekly and on a trimester basis, because we're trimesters at Cadillac. And I really feel that our coaches do a great job of monitoring, and I think we do as well. And I think our teaching staff is on board when our coaches reach out to them and see if there's anything that they can do to help assist their kids and their programs. But we have some pretty sharp kids. I mean, our girls golf program this fall was second in the entire state in Division 2 or Division 3 for golf. They had the second highest team GPA was a 3.967.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
darn near perfect.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah, so we had one other team in the state that had a better GPA than us. So I mean, and looking at our track kids or our cross country kids, very sharp group of kids. We had a ton of kids that were all state academic. We're still waiting on, football is usually a little bit later, volleyball is a little bit later because the season runs a little bit longer. But we'll start getting those, we'll start getting those results in as well. So, I mean, we've had a really solid start to the school year when you look at everything that we've done so far.
That really speaks to the quality of the kids, because I can tell you, my daughter and son, both recent Cadillac high school graduates, really weren't involved in a whole lot. And it is hard. It's hard to be a high school student, even without all the extra demands on your time to be an athlete. So that's awesome news. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a full-time job for these kids. I mean, it like you just said, the academic portion of it is hard enough. The standards that not only our school district puts out, but with the state as well. And then on top of that, throw in, 2 to 3 hours every day of practice or the long bus trips to wherever you're going to and competitions and all the rigors of, just the stress on your body as well as your mind. So, I mean, these kids, I give them a ton of credit. They work hard. And the nice thing is you see the fruits of their labor as well. I mean, we like you said, we are a very sports-minded town. Our kids take a lot of pride in that. And you can tell not just, in day-to-day practices when I go watch, but, in the field of competition, they work hard and they take a lot of pride in what they do.
I'm smiling over here because you were just talking about the long bus rides. Being an Alpena native, I'm sure everybody looks over at that schedule and circles in red ink that visiting Alpena trip. Yeah.
Well, we try to take a little sting out of it. When we send them over, we put them in a charter bus, so it's a little more comfortable than the yellow bus. We feed them when they go over there. We buy, athletic department buys them pizza, something like that to make it so that, it's a little more comfortable for the trip. And looking at next year, I mean, that's going to actually be one of our shorter trips for football when we look at the new conference that we're entering into for the fall of 23. I mean, we're looking at a trip to Escanaba. We're looking at a trip to Alpena next year. So those will be our 2 long trips, and the following year will be a trip to Marquette and a trip to the Sioux. So I mean, but unfortunately, that's just where we're at. Conference alignment wise, there's just only so many schools our size in northern Michigan, and we do have options to play other schools in the Mount Pleasant, Midland, Grand Rapids area. But again, it's kind of
they all have their own conferences that they're in.
Yeah, right. and they have a lot of teams in those conferences, so their open dates are limited, and if they don't match up with what we have, then that's where we're at.
Right. Yeah, he could work for the United Nations. He's got to get along with all these athletic directors. He's got to get along with all the coaches. And, of course, and then there's all the student athletes. And I'm sure you're on the phone with Jennifer Brown a lot. I'm sure you two are constantly in communication.
Yeah, we were just talking yesterday about, some of the things that as far as planning and where we're at for timeline with this project that's going on at the stadium and where we'll be in the spring. And then we also spoke about some stuff where, hopefully by September, October of next year, the team rooms down there that were the junior high locker rooms, the junior high gym. Obviously, it's not the junior high anymore. So we had to go through and rename a lot of the rooms and the facilities and how we're going to manage those, and traffic flow, where are we putting classes, and how are we scheduling practices and stuff. So there's a lot of logistics, but I will say that having 3 full-size gyms in your high school is a luxury. There are schools in our conference that do not have that. So I mean, we're pretty fortunate, and again, to go out to our middle school and have 2 full-size gyms at the middle school, and then the elementary gyms that we have. I think the accommodations that our kids have, not just as athletes, but also, the ability to have very, very nice facilities for gym class and for assemblies and things of that nature, I think is really important.
Okay. You onboarded some new sports. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, I mean, we're entering, I think, year number 5, I think, for bowling. Okay. Girls swim, I think we're in year number 3. Girls swim this year, I think we had the most amount of kids. We had, I think we had 24 girls on the swim team, and we had, I want to say, about 20 on the girls golf team that we had started. And really, our girls golf team just missed out on making the states for such a short amount of time of having a girls golf program to being, I think we finished tied for 4th, and you needed to be top 3 in the region to advance to the state finals.
Okay.
We had a girl that was she just missed the cut as a state finalist this year. So the numbers of those kids, where, does it take away a little bit from maybe the volleyball program or maybe the cross country program, because we're bringing these new sports in the fall seasons? A little bit, but a lot of these kids did not participate in those sports before they came in anyway. So the nice thing is we're giving opportunities to kids that wouldn't be doing anything anyways. They might be doing a club of some sort, or not doing anything at all, and now they're out on the golf course. They're out doing things that weren't there just a couple years ago. So the sports that we've added have been great. We added girls wrestling this last year. The MHSA just added a wrestling component to the state finals for the girls. So it's not as big as what we were hoping statewide. So there's only a couple of state regionals and then the state finals down at Ford Field. But it's opportunity again, and we're fortunate enough to, we don't have a large girls team, but I think we have this year. Yesterday was our first practice on Monday, so I think we had 4 or 5 girls out, which is, again, when you look at the schools in northern Michigan, to have 4 or 5 girls on your wrestling team within your program is really good. So there's some opportunities there that, again, weren't there before I got here. And I know there was some talk and putting those things in motion, but to be able to implement those programs and see them grow, again, is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Fred, when Cadillac teams travel, I know there's an expectation that's set in terms of, okay, we're going to another town. You're representing Cadillac, and I've always been impressed by how our athletes behave in someone else's community. Can you talk about the precedent that's been set with that?
So for me, we have preseason coaches meetings, and we have our preseason athlete meetings that, we meet with parents as well. We really feel that it's important to communicate our expectations. I really feel it's important that our coaches relay my expectations and their expectations to their athletes and to their parents. One of the big things I always tell everybody is, when people see you, they don't see you, they see that name across the front of your jersey or the back of your jersey, and they see Cadillac. And when you go into a restaurant or when you take a charter bus or just a regular yellow bus, those drivers, they'll sometimes reach out to me and say, hey, that was a great group of kids you had, and we want to compliment your coach. Please pass that along. And so I get a lot more of those than the other, which is always a good thing. And they know the expectations. So, I talked to our kids. We had our junior high boys basketball program started just a couple weeks ago. I go there for the first practice like I always do, and I take about 10 minutes to talk to the kids and with each group and say, this is what it means to be an athlete here in Cadillac. And it's nice that our coaches reinforce that, but I think it's important that when they hear it from me as well and they see me at the events, they know that, in one way or another, I'm watching and monitoring and stuff. So, but I think it's important that they know that message, and they really have reflected that in a lot of the events that I've been to, where kids helping each other up, shaking hands, saying good game, stuff like that. I mean, it does make a big difference when you have kids that are good people, not just good athletes, and that's reflective of our community.
Fred, I know that your daughter was impacted by this, but when COVID hit and all these premier athletes could not compete, don't you think it changed the mentality of this is a privilege? Don't you think?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the things that the kids took for granted, and then they lost those opportunities. I think it put a lot of things into perspective, not just for that senior class in 20, but also those groups of juniors and sophomores that were behind them, where they lost out on opportunities as well. The senior class of kids that are on their way out were kids that were sophomores. And so those kids, I mean, I think we have a really solid senior class this year with some really good leaders in all the sports. I think that having that experience, like you said, of having that opportunity taken away, I think that they were able to use that and then kind of transfer that to the kids as well that are below them, those kids that are now juniors and sophomores and freshmen, saying, hey, don't take it for granted, because you just never know when it could be gone. And I think that that is definitely a thing that our seniors this year have kind of taken to heart, and I think again it reflects on the performance that they do out on the field, and how they conduct themselves at practices and in the buses and on in the stands. The other night at the regional volleyball final in Houghton Lake, we had a student section that made the trip over, and without me really giving much of having to say too much, at the end of the game, the kids were picking up their garbage and stuff from their student section and throwing it in the garbage can, and the ladies from Houghton Lake said thank you for them doing that. So I mean, just little things like that when you see them, and those were our seniors. Like I said, we had a bunch of our senior football players, some of our senior girls from the golf team, and from cross country. They were there, and they show that example, and those kids that are a little bit further up in the bleachers that are watching, they'll pick up a bag of popcorn here or there, and things of that nature, throw them away, and that's just that trickle effect from, I say it all the time with my kids, monkey see, monkey do. They see that, and if it's a good reflection or a bad reflection, those kids that are the younger ones that are impressionable, they'll see that. So it's good for me to see our upperclassmen doing things like that, because it's not just those guys, but it also impacts our underclassmen as well.
Fred, we've got about 7 minutes left, and I really wanted to get a kind of a preview of the winter season before you go. So give us a highlight of what we can expect over the next few months.
Well, I mean, looking at if we start with hockey, because we're starting tomorrow. I mean, Wednesday's our first regular season game, so we start out with Tawas. I think this group of kids are, again, led by some seniors that are some pretty solid kids, and I seen, last year some improvement. You go against the team that wins the state championship in D3 in Midland Dow. They were impressive, and we competed with them for about a period. I mean, it was tough, but I mean, we competed, and we just eventually weren't as deep. But I see those kids doing a better job this year, a year of experience and leadership and strength and growth. So I think our hockey team is, I mean, it's a long season. It's 25 games. So I think that I could see them winning, though, looking at the schedule. The Big North Conference is tough, but, I could see our kids winning more games than losing. So if we're 13-12, if we're 15 and and 10, things like that. I mean, that would be a big improvement because, like you say, you play in the Traverse City Central, Traverse City West. Gaylord's always good. Alpena's solid. So, I mean, just in our conference alone, it's a grind. So, hockey, I see us improving. Boys basketball, we lost some really good seniors last year, but we've got some good kids coming back. We're going to be young, but, man, are we going to be talented. So I can see Coach Benzenberg and his staff putting some stuff together as the year goes on and competing for a Big North Conference championship and making a run again. Girls basketball, young again. I mean, we have some seniors there, but just not a lot of them. And so we're hoping that we'll see improvement there, which we did last year. We beat the state. They were a state finalist. Ludington lost in the state championship in Division II, and we went to their place earlier in the year and beat them by 12. I mean, so there's some talent there. I think coming back. So it's just a matter of how Coach Damgard and Coach Simons can mold those kids and get them ready. And then you look at bowling with Coach Moore. Numbers are down a little bit this year just because we've had a great run of kids that came in. And our last couple kids that were younger in that group are either seniors or just leaving the program. So really, Coach Moore's in a little bit of a rebuilding process, but I think he'll do fine. He's been one of the, to come in, build a program from nothing. He's done a great job there, so I don't see any changes there. And wrestling with Coach Hoffert. Numbers are great. Third year now that we've sponsored, brought it back from where we were. It was a dormant program for about 10 or 12 years. We brought wrestling back. And just in his third year, I think we're up around 30, 32 kids, which I see some of the programs that have been in the Big North and around us for a long time, they're not even fielding enough to fill every weight class. So for us to do that in 3 years, I think that speaks highly of what Coach Hoffert has done in a short amount of time. And you can't forget about our ski program. The girls are bringing almost everybody back. They're the defending state champs, and I see them, with some freshmen coming in with experience from juniors. I don't see them missing a beat. I think that they can make a run at it again. And the boys program, they're back-to-back regional champs, and they're coming back in where they lost some good seniors, but they have some good underclassmen coming in. So, I think that they have an opportunity to win 3 regionals in a row, with Coach Netzley. So, it's just one of those things where the strength of our programs, I think the consistency of it has been within our staffs. They're solid, they're good coaches, they're good people, and they kind of instill that stuff into our student athletes. And in doing so, I think there's a direct reflection of not just success on the court, but in the classroom and outside of the classroom as well.
It's November 2022. So as the athletic director for Cadillac Area Public Schools, what one thing are you most excited about?
Well,
that's like asking to pick your favorite bale out of or your favorite stick out of the hay, but go for it anyway. Fred.
Well, some of the things that I'm most excited about, is just how the kids transition from one season to the next. We just finished up with most of our fall sports. We have 2 fall sports left. We have swim. We have 1 representative going to the state finals. And then for volleyball, we're in the state quarterfinals. So we have two programs still competing in the fall, and here we are in November. So, when you have teams competing in November from the fall season, that means that you've had a lot of success there. So for me, I'm excited to see how they finish their fall season, and then the transitional period from, that week to 2 weeks that you have off from the fall into the winter. I like seeing how these kids switch gears. They get that week or two, and I can speak from experience watching my youngest daughter, who is now a freshman, compete on a very competitive freshman volleyball team, and then she was happy to have a couple weeks off.
Sure.
And then now practice starting back up with hoops, she's ready to go again. And so to see that excitement, that tells me that, she's not rolling her eyes and saying, oh, we got basketball. These kids are genuinely excited to be there. So for me, that's what I enjoy seeing is kids enjoying being there, and knowing that expectations and stuff. So,
what can the community do to support you and to support your programs?
They've done a lot. I mean, number one, we've talked about at the very beginning with the bond. I mean, that in itself is huge, to give our kids the facilities to support them and all the things that they're going to do. But also, the kids love seeing full venues. The hockey arena, the basketball arena, those things, wrestling. Anytime that we can get people out supporting our kids and our programs, our kids really appreciate that. Our coaches appreciate it. So, I mean, really, that in itself is really big for our kids to be able to look up into the crowd and see a bunch of people supporting them on a night-to-night basis, when you have, anywhere between 60 to 80 home or away events in the span of 3 months. To have the crowds that we get on a regular basis throughout the course of the year is really pretty impressive.
Thank you so much, Fred, for your time today, everybody. This has been Fred Bryant, the Athletic Director for Cadillac Area Public Schools.
And Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank. More local chat next week here on 107.9 CDY.